Thanksgiving with one and Christmas the other, and then
and then every other year.
And so we had a lot of Christmases up there. Sit in front of the fireplace. Grandpa sometimes would make stew in the black pot in the fireplace. What do you call it?
Fun.
Buffalo stew.
Uh-huh.
And gee, that stuff was tasty. On Christmas Eve we had clam chowder. No, not that, oyster stew.
Uh-huh.
I don't think my kids liked it too well. They ate it, and the little oyster crackers Grandma would put in it. And, so we'd always have that oyster stew on Christmas Eve. And
Did you have your presents then always on Christmas Day? Did you trim the tree the night before, or always have it trimmed when you did it?
Grandma Letty trimmed it the night before. We liked ours trimmed the week ahead, so we could enjoy it.
Yeah, that's us too.
And Dick always took a picture of the tree, and it never turned out. So every year, all the time we're married, we have one picture with the Christmas tree, and all it is the lights. You'd think he'd give up, but he took it every year.
Yeah.
But anyway, Big Bear was, then Grandma started having, not well, she just wasn't well. And the doctor said she'd have to move down the hill. Oh, that was a sad day. So she moved down to Van Nuys, and their neighbor was a doctor. And he gave her a complete physical, and what was wrong with her was she had too much male hormone. That's all that was wrong with her. And Grandpa was so mad because he had, what did he have? Foxes. And a few of those, what do they make chinchillas. And he was furious when he had to move. In fact, he stayed up there a while, and Grandma stayed with us. She did not like that too well. So he finally sold the property and moved down to Van Nuys and got a home. They lived there. And then when she found out that she was okay, they couldn't wait to get back up there. So after Laurie was born, they moved in. And Grandpa was ready, was 62, or he was close to retiring. And he moved back up there and got the house that they lived in. That house wasn't near the nice home at the Fox Farm. And Dick was in the service. Patsy and I went to go and ice skate on a pond, a big pond, on the chinchilla farm. And we walked quite a ways, of course. And this one time we went, and the ice was thin, and we fell. We got off, but we fell. We started hearing it cracking. So we started getting off, and it cracked under us. We hit that cold water, and we jackknifed. We were wet like this. Butts were wet. And we had to walk home with all that wet, and we were just stiff as a board. We thought, no. And that was the coldest
scary,
night.
though.
Yeah, how lucky we were that we could, if we had been a foot this far, we would have been able to grab the bank and get out. But we sort of jackknifed and plopped upon. And so, that was a cold time. And Christmas Eve was wonderful up there. Grandpa told stories, and Grandma, and we just sit in front of that big crackling fire and played a lot of canasta.
Canasta, is that your cards? Or?
Yeah, it's a fun game.
The thing I remember about Grandpa John as a kid, he was always so funny. He always had a lot of good stories and stuff.
Yeah.
But his pipe, he could do some smoke rings with his
I
pipe.
know.
And he always blew up his muzzle.
Once upon a time, over on a pretty green hill, lived 3 billy goat gruffs. There was a baby billy goat gruff, a middle-sized billy goat gruff, and a great big billy goat gruff with great big horns. Oh, over across the bridge there was another big green hill. And you know, sometimes you think things are always greener on the other side. Well, Billy Goat Gruff looked at that green hill and they thought, oh, that green grass looks so good. I've got to have some of that. But they couldn't go over the bridge to get there because underneath the bridge lived a great, big, ugly troll. And he'd come and eat them if they tried to go over the bridge.
Oh.
He's big and he's ugly. He has great big eyes
Ooh.
and a big snouty nose. So they couldn't go. Well, they watched that green grass and they just, finally the little green Billy Goat Gruff, he just couldn't stand it. So he starts over the bridge. He goes tip-tap, 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 all across the bridge. Gets halfway over and he hears, who's going over my bridge? And it was that great big ugly troll.
Oh.
And he Billy Goat Gruff said, it's I, Billy Goat Gruff. I'm going over the bridge to get green grass on the other hill. You can't go on my bridge. I'm going to come up and eat you up. Please don't eat me up. If you just wait, there's a bigger Billy Goat Gruff coming over, and that'll make a better dinner. So the old troll thought about it and he said, okay, go on. So little Billy Goat Gruff, trip, 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 he went over on the green hill. He jumped in that green grass and oh, he loved it. Well, when middle-sized Billy Goat Gruff looked over that bridge and on that hill and saw little Billy Goat Gruff over there eating that good grass, she couldn't stand it. I'm going over there too. So she started over the bridge. Trip, 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 trip.
What's that?
That's her little paws going on the bridge.
Her feet,
And
clip-clopping.
pretty soon the Billy Goat Gruff said, who's going on my bridge?
Oh.
It is I, middle-sized Billy Goat Gruff. I'm going over to eat green grass. You can't go over on my bridge. I'm coming up to eat you up.
That's a big troll.
He's mean.
Yeah.
Well, middle-sized Billy Goat Gruff said, oh, please don't eat me up. If you just wait, great big Billy Goat Gruff will be coming along. He'll make a real fine meal. Well, okay, go on. So she went trip, trip, trip on across the bridge and jumped into that green grass. Oh, she loved it. Well, Billy Goat Gruff, he looked over there and he was jealous. I've got to have that green grass too. So he started over the bridge. Clomp, 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 clomp.
What's that?
That's that great big Billy Goat Gruff stomping on the bridge. And the troll hears him and he said, who's clomping on my bridge? It is I, big Billy Goat Gruff. Well, the troll comes climbing up over. Boy, he's going to have that big meal. And he gets up on the bridge, and there stands the great big Billy Goat Gruff. He has big horns, and he lowers his head, and he runs, and he ran that troll and knocked him off the bridge, and he disappeared and was gone forever.
Oh.
And big Billy Goat Gruff clumped over that bridge, and you know, they could eat any grass they wanted.
And the big troll.
He's gone forever. Billy Goat Gruff had big horns, and he knocked him right off the bridge, and they could eat that grass and cross the bridge when they wanted, and they lived happily ever after. A long time ago, in a little English town, years and years ago, there was a kingdom, a little English kingdom. There lived a man and a wife and a little girl, and they were so happy. They were the best family. They did things together. Life was so beautiful. Well, one day a terrible thing happened. The poor little mama passed away. And oh, the little girl was so sad. She cried and she just couldn't get over it. And Daddy, that made him very sad too. He said, what am I going to do for my little girl? So he decided to marry again and bring her home another mama. So he did that. He married a lady and she had 2 daughters. And you know, those daughters were very strange. One daughter had an eye right in the middle of her forehead. The other daughter had 2 eyes like you and I. But she had an eye in the middle of her forehead. And they called her Little One Eyes and the other one Little 3 Eyes. So they were very happy. Little 2 Eyes, and they called her Little 2 Eyes because she was very normal. They had a good time and she was happy once again. And so they did things, they went on picnics, and they just were really happy. Well, then one terrible day, Papa died, and that was just too much. Poor little Two Eyes, she just thought, I'll never get over it. And you know, they lived okay for a while, but pretty soon the money became very scarce. And it finally came down to where they just barely could eat. And the stepmother, very crabby little Two Eyes, she made her do all the work and to go out and take care of the goats in the afternoon. And one day, poor little Two Eyes was very tired because this was a lot of work for a little girl. So one day she took the little goats out to pasture, sat down under a tree, and she was so tired and hungry that she sat there and cried and cried. And pretty soon she heard someone say, "What's the matter, little Two Eyes?" And she looked up. There was a beautiful lady. She said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm the fairy godmother, and I want to know what's wrong." So she said, "I'm so hungry, and we only have a crust of bread at home. And my stepmother makes me do all the work, and then I have to bring the little goats out here. I'm so tired." Well, she said, "You'll never be hungry again." So she called a cute little goat over to her, tied a pretty little bell around its neck, took it over to Two Eyes, and she said, "Now when you're hungry and you come out here, all you have to do is call this little goat to you, and you say, 'Set the table, little goat.'" And she said that to the little goat, and there was a table with beautiful food on it. Oh, little Two Eyes, her eyes just popped out, and she sat down, and she ate and ate, and she turned to say thank you to the little pretty lady, and she was gone. So she said, "Clear the table, little goat," and she started home. She was so happy, her tummy was full, and she was so happy. So she took the goats home, and she turned down the crust of bread that the stepmother offered her, and went to her bed. And she slept so soundly. And every day she'd go out and take the little goats out after her work was done, and call that cute little goat to her and say, "Set the table, little goat." Well, she began to blossom and put weight on. And the stepsisters and the stepmother were looking at her, and finally they decided there's something wrong here. So the stepmother said to little One Eyes, "You go out with your sister and see what's going on out there with the goats." Little One Eye, she cried and complained, but she got up and she went with her the next day. Don't move, I won't. So anyway, she wasn't happy about taking little One Eyes. So they went out and took the goats and put them out to pasture. And then she said, "Sit down, little One Eye, and I'll sing to you." Well, you know, she sang so pretty and beautifully that little One Eye fell fast asleep. As soon as she was asleep, she called that little goat over to her and said, "Set the table, little goat." And the best sleep, the best ever. And then she said, "Clear the table, little goat." And she sat back to rest. And pretty soon she wakened little One Eyes and said, "Let's go home." Well, as soon as they got home, the stepsister and the stepmother grabbed little One Eyes and said, "Okay, what happened? What happened?" "Nothing happened. We just went out and put the goats out to pasture, and we sat down and we rested, and little sister sang to me, and I fell asleep." "You fell asleep?" And she was furious. "I sent you out there to find out what was going on, and you fell asleep. Tomorrow, your sister will go." So the next day, little Two Eyes got her work done, and they got the little goats, and little Three Eyes went with them. They put the little goats out to pasture, sat down to rest, and little Two Eyes said, "Lean back and rest, little Three Eyes, and I'll sing to you." So she sang to her so sweetly and so softly that she fell fast asleep. But I, in the middle of the forehead, didn't notice that. Now, Two Eyes didn't notice that. So she called that little goat to her and said, "Set the table, little goat. It's a wonderful feast. Clear the table, little goat." And then she sat down to rest. And when the sun started going down, she said, "Come on, little Three Eyes, we have to go home." So they started home. And little Three Eyes took everything that went on. So as soon as they got home, Three Eyes ran to her mother and sister and told her all that she had seen. Oh, that stepmother was so happy, and she ran and grabbed the little goat with the silver bell, and she said, "We want that food, little goat. Give us that food, little goat." She didn't know what to say, and I doubt very much if the little goat would do it anyway. And she became so furious that she killed that little goat. And Two Eyes was just so sad, and she didn't know what she would do. She went to her room and she laid down in bed and she said, she just cried and cried. Pretty soon someone said, "Why are you crying, little Two Eyes?" She looked up and there was that very godmother that watched over her. She told her what had happened and she said, "Don't cry, little Two Eyes. It'll be fine. You go ask your mother for the heart of the little goat and plant it underneath your window." So, and then she was gone. So little Two Eyes ran out and asked for the heart, and they gave it to her because they had the rest of the goat to eat. And she went and planted it under the tree, under the window, and went to bed. And the next morning, the king and queen were driving around in their coach, and they had the prince with them. And they looked over down in the kingdom, and they saw something shining. And they ordered the coachman to go find out what this was. And he raced down there. It was a beautiful apple tree with apples. But the apples were all solid. And just then the two sisters came out. And the coachman called the two girls over, and the queen said, "Are those your golden apples?" And they said yes, which was a lie. "Would you like some?" And they tried to pick some apples for the queen, and they would not come off. And they'd spring away from them. And they were just having a terrible time. Well, little Two Eyes heard all the commotion. She peeked out the window and saw this beautiful carriage. She brushed her hair and ran outside. And they told the queen that she could pick the apples. So she climbed over there under that up in the tree, and she picked her apron full of golden apples and presented them to the queen. Well, she was a very pretty little Two Eyes, and the prince sat in the back seat and saw her, and he was smitten. Oh, he thought, "That's the most beautiful young woman I've ever seen." Well, the queen thanked little Two Eyes, and they rode off. Well, the prince was so smitten that he wouldn't eat, and he wouldn't sleep, and the king and queen were very worried. And they thought, "What will we do?" So finally they sent the coachman down and asked if little Two Eyes would like to come and be the queen's handmaiden. And she said, "Oh, yes, I would." So she went and said goodbye to the stepmother, picked them some golden apples so that they could eat. And then she climbed in the carriage and went off to the castle. Oh, she loved it there. And she loved the queen, and she loved helping her. And the prince had come to call every day. He was very much in love with her. And pretty soon she started to like him too. And one day he called and he asked if she would marry him. And she said, "Oh, yes." And you know, they had a big wedding. And we were married and lived happily ever after.
Yay!
Yay!
The way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the memory of all that. No, they can't take that away from me. The way your smile just beams, the way you sing off key, the way you haunt my dreams. No, no, they can't take that away from me. We may never, never meet again on the bumpy road to love. Still I'll always, always keep the memory of the way you hold your knife, the way we danced till 3, the way you've changed my life. No, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away from me.